We're going to do a little interview, so a Q&A interview here with Greg, and primarily engaging, and he might even do a little Q&A with me.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Yes, he has it in mind, to turn it around. But on basically what we just did at the beginning.
And before you even get into the specifics, I want you to see the title here, Why I Don't Believe in the Bible, right? Okay, I don't know what that means. What do you mean you don't believe the Bible? For those who read Tactics, you know that this is the opening question. This is the first step. Trying to figure out what people are talking about. What do you mean by that? Does the skeptic here mean that he doesn't believe the theological claims of the Bible are true? That might be what he means. Maybe he doesn't believe the historical things in the Bible are true. And maybe that's it. There's a mixture of things that were up there. I don't know. I want clarification from that person. Because he says, I don't believe in the history. Well, wait, there's lots of history. You don't think any history in the Bible is true? I mean, they talk about Romans crucifying people. Don't you think Romans crucified people? Well, yeah, they crucified people. So some of the history is going to be okay, right? But not other things. What I'm trying to do is narrow it down so it's not broad. I want to figure out what it is he actually means by the statement, why I don't believe in the Bible. So that's part of my strategy in asking questions to get clarification. And then we can go into some of these here. So where do you want to go here, boss?
We're going to hit on a couple of these coming up, so I want to kind of mostly get on the ones we're not.
So I'll touch on something. There's a lot more to be talking about them, right?
But we just heard about some bad arguments, bad reasoning against religion. Well, before that, we heard a whole bunch already that didn't have very, very good reasoning for it, of course.
Yeah, but they sound compelling because a lot of people offer them the way you did, and it's like, okay, now what? A lot of the answers were given that were helpful and moving in the right direction.
Right. So I want to kind of start you engaging on them. Well, you wanted to say something about
number 3. Is that what you wanted to get into?
Yeah, but you wanted to say something about number 2 briefly, I think.
You know which gospels are the right ones. Okay. Well, you made a comment that you said about people getting together and voting. Is that what you said, right? Yeah. That's what you said, right? Some group of men voted on it. When did they vote on the Gospels? On the books of the Bible?
So I was suggesting 2 things. One was this, like, alluding to the Council of Nicaea, which they didn't do it there.
No. So
they had the affirmation vote, which was mentioned accurately. That was like 395, as I recall.
Okay, as far as I know,
but not a vote
there was no vote on the canon, and maybe our friend Sarah Boyd should be talking about this as well. There's no vote from any council of the church on the canon until the 16th century at the Council of Trent. Nobody voted on the books. This is just a fact-fan tactic. That's a mistake. But how did I reveal it? I asked him, when was it? And so, I got, council and this, that, the other thing. And nobody voted on this.
Right.
Okay. There was a process, but it wasn't a vote. Right. Okay.
And that came up in the discussion because I said, oh yeah, that one, that's where they were voting on this heresy.
Yeah. So what
and he was right.
Yeah. Gentleman right over here. Yeah. So what happened at what happened at the Council of Nicaea? Because it came up.
Right.
So notice I'm asking questions. I'm trying to get him to verify the point that he made. I need more detail. So you said the Council of Nicaea. So what happened to the Council of Nicaea?
Well, if I was being what I would have said, well, they voted on these things like this heresy, and then they voted on
the canon. Okay, so
which I could find on the internet.
Okay,
but of course that's probably where I got it. You'd ask me, where did you get that? I'd say on the internet.
You got it on there. Why don't you check Philip Schaff's Creeds of Christendom, because they have the entire notes of everything that happened at the Council of Nicaea, all right? But just so you know, had nothing to do with the canon, all right? Notice how I'm asking him for his sources, but he doesn't have good sources, okay? I have a primary source document that I just happen to know, because I've studied this, Phil Schaff's Creeds of Christendom. Got that? There, it's all there, all right? So that's a couple of questions I'd ask about canon. I might even ask, when you say canon, what does that word mean? Okay, and because the word canon means authority, the rule. What is the authoritative text? Now, what the early church was trying to figure out was whether what were the texts that were inspired by God? Okay? Now, a skeptic, you don't believe in that as a skeptic, right? That these are inspired by God. Okay, well then, what is the canon? The canon is a group of texts that one group of people agreed on reflects their views, right? So, that group of people agreed on this canon to reflect their views. What could you find possibly wrong with that? These people said this is what we believe. Are you saying they got the wrong set of books about what they believe?
I'm just, I'm just saying that they don't. Gosh, it's hard to do this stuff. I don't think.
You see the problem here,
I'm just
though?
saying I don't. That they just because that's what they believe and yeah they're not lying doesn't mean that it's true, and so they're probably mistaken.
Oh, okay. But we're not. Canon doesn't say it's true. Canon is the rule. It's the authority. So this is the group of books that they believed was the authority for what they believed. They identified as the books that expressed what they believed. So what would be wrong with a group of men voting on that if that's what they did, though they didn't? But what would be wrong with that?
So I would say that they have a bias about what they're saying about Jesus and how they're making these claims about him, and I know that's going to get me into another problem because then it's going to be, well, then that suddenly would be the issue rather than the things I was saying.
Okay, but maybe they have a bias about Jesus, just say, maybe they did. But all canon means, if it's not inspired, is it's a group of books that these people believe reflects their beliefs for whatever reason. So what could be the problem? The Mormons have their canon. I don't think it's God's word, but it is their book that they say are authoritative. So what's wrong with a group saying what books are authoritative? Here's the line of thinking here. And I just lose my mic now. The line of thinking is canon is either God's inspired word, and if it's inspired, God's not going to lose his word. Or maybe it's not inspired. That's his view. Well, then it's just a group of books that a group of people said reflects our views. Well, if that's all it is, then why is there a problem? These guys got together and said, these are the books that reflect our views. How can there be any lost books or wrong books when they're the ones who are deciding what their view is? Right? Now, at str.org, I wrote a piece called No Lost Books, where I developed this idea. STR stands to reason. But that's these are the kinds of questions I'd be asking him regarding the canon. Let me just see if there's any. You want to go to number 3 because this is related, the gospel.
Yeah, and this one we didn't really get into.
Okay.
And so it's, saying that it's just this recycled Redeemer claims. Yeah.
Well, there's a logical problem here, Dwayne, the skeptic. So let me ask you this. Let's just say we met today. You said, I'm Dwayne Morris from Seattle. I said, no, you're not. Yeah, I am. No, you're not. Why are you saying I'm not Dwayne Morris? I'll tell you why. Because I've met 10 people in the last 6 months that told me they were Dwayne Morris from Seattle. They can't all be Dwayne Morris. You're just another imposter. Okay, see the problem here? Maybe all these things were just as you said, and all these dying and rising messiahs born of a virgin, maybe that's all they're collected, okay? And maybe I did have 10 people that tell me that Dwayne Morris, they were Dwayne Morris, they weren't. Would that mean that you're not the real Dwayne Morris? No, of course not. That's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how would I know if you're the real Dwayne Morris?
You want some evidence, paperwork,
Yeah, like what?
like a birth certificate.
Or driver's license,
Driver's
okay,
license.
see, bona fides, right, okay. So the error here is the presumption that the Gospels are not true. And then the question, well, if they're not true, where did they come from? Oh, they came from all of this cobbling together of ancient myths, right? All right, so, but how do we know the Gospels are not true? That's the assumption.